Welcome, Gunrunner.
So far I've covered loads of different systems in my amazing exclusive series, from hugely popular ones like the Commodore 64 and Nintendo NES, to obscure oddities like the VTech Creativision and Bally Astrocade. But it's fair to say that none of them were obscure or rare as the SAM Coupé, the subject of this very episode. I'm not going to go into the full history of the SAM here because I've already done that in another video, which I'll link in the description for those that are interested, but I will give you a very brief overview. The SAM Coupé was finally released in the UK in December 1989 by Miles Gorton Technology, and was dubbed by many as the Super Spectrum. This was because it retained a good level of compatibility with the 48K ZX Spectrum, although not the 128K sadly, and was very much intended as an upgrade route for existing Spectrum owners who didn't want to start all over again with the 16-bit Atari ST or Amiga. What was interesting about the SAM was it was actually an 8-bit computer based around a Zilog Z80 CPU, just like the ZX Spectrum before it, but with graphics and sound capabilities that very much rivaled its 16-bit competition. In many ways, the SAM was very comparable to the MSX2 machines in this regard. Unfortunately, it arrived far too late to make any real impact and was plagued with issues that did nothing to help it. Software houses were reluctant to support the SAM, and this gave people even less reasons to make the upgrade. But despite the lack of full-price commercial software, the SAM soon built up a small community of very dedicated fans, who delivered a wide range of public domain and homebrew games to take their place. This makes the SAM quite unusual in that the vast majority of its games library was created by the community rather than commercial enterprises. This made such a video interesting to compile, as I was very much entering the unknown with lots of different titles to sift through. What made this task even harder is that when I was perusing the excellent World of SAM database, which I'll link down below for those who are interested, I discovered that many of the potential candidates had distribution denied, so I wasn't able to just download them and play them on the SAM Coupé emulator, which is terrific by the way. But even so, I think I managed to come up with 10 titles that are more than worthy of their place in this video. So now we've got that rather lengthy intro out of the way, it's time to get on with the show as I present to you 10 amazing SAM Coupé exclusives.
Defenders of the Earth. They got here just in time because evil Ming the Merciless is about to turn the Earth into a frozen snow cone until the arrival of Flash Gordon, American hero.
I'll melt Ming's muscle.
Flash's laser works, and Mandrake and Phantom give Ming a 1-2 punch.
Ming, you're all wet.
Defenders of the Earth action figures with Power Punch sold separately from Galoob.
Defenders of the Earth.
Enigma Variations were one of the few third-party publishers to release full-price commercial games for the SAM Coupé, most notably the excellent port of Defenders of the Earth. Although many of their games were upgrades of existing ZX Spectrum titles, they did also release the excellent SAM Coupé exclusive Sphera. As well as being one of the few genuine exclusives to be released commercially, it's also one of the very few games to use Mode 2 graphics, which is why it looks so unique. As you've no doubt noticed already, this is a vertically scrolling arcade style shoot 'em up that has some rather interesting features that make it really stand out. The first one of these is related to those unique visuals, as Sphera has scenery that constantly scrolls past on 3 different planes, above, below and on the same one as your ship. This not only gives a really nice parallax effect, but it also adds to the challenge obscuring enemies and their bullets. And speaking of those bullets, they fly around everywhere and it takes some real skill to avoid them all. It's almost bullet hell in nature in fact, so you need all those power-ups to progress. Sphera is a game that impresses on every single level. excellent Witching Hour by Fred Publishing is a vast flip-screen arcade adventure where you play as a wizard on a quest to destroy the Demon Master. If you've played classic 8-bit titles like the Magic Knight series, Dizzy Games or Black Lamp, which also has a similar setting so no doubt served as an inspiration, then you know exactly what to expect here. Find objects, use objects, talk to other characters and solve puzzles. The Witching Hour is quite nice in that it gives you helpful hints to aid in your duties and lets you examine objects quite carefully. It also gives you several lives to play with and tells you just how much of the game you've completed so far, which gives you an actual sense of achievement as you progress. The graphics are lovely and there's tons of gameplay to get your teeth into also. My only real complaint here is that it could have desperately done with some in-game music, which is especially annoying when you hear the lovely title track. Still, the SAM doesn't have many genuine arcade adventures, let alone great ones, although the superb port of Prince of Persia needs a mention here, so the Witching Hour becomes an essential game almost by default. Every home computer needs a good version of Boulder Dash, or at least a clone, and the bizarrely named Wop Gamma is the SAM's. Despite its very different looks, which go for a much more futuristic theme, the gameplay is pretty much exactly the same. You complete each level by collecting all the gems and then heading into the exit, and must do this before your time runs out. Instead of falling boulders, you have these things that look like some kind of pneumatic press, but the result is exactly the same. Move the dirt from underneath them and they fall, and if they hit you, they kill you. There are also enemies that need to be avoided and puzzles that need to be solved, which is usually a case of working out how to get a gem without being killed. There's a lot to like about Wop Gamma. It has lovely visuals, fast responsive gameplay and an absolutely cracking soundtrack. My only real concern is that the game is seriously hard. The time limits are ridiculously tight and it hits you with puzzles and traps right from the get-go. So the level passwords are a very welcome feature, allowing you to take a break and come back for more when you've calmed your frustrations. I think it's pretty obvious from the moment you start playing this game that it was heavily inspired by the Konami arcade classic Gradius. This isn't really a negative though, as Parallax is certainly not alone in cloning that game, and given that SAM has so few proper shoot 'em ups, it's well worth including here. So yeah, just like its inspiration, you have enemies that arrive in preset attack waves, you have to take them all out to acquire a power up, and you have no chance of getting anywhere until you learn all these waves. There are also end of level bosses to take out too, and you'll really need those power ups to do any damage to them at all. What is quite interesting is that rather than having an option system like Gradius, Parallax allows you to define the power up setups from the title screen, as well as your difficulty and the option of music or sound effects. I went with the music for this video because, as you can no doubt hear already, it's absolutely outstanding. The only real problem with Parallax is that it's really tough, especially if you suck at shoot 'em ups like I do. But then so is Gradius, so I guess it stays pretty authentic to its obvious arcade roots. I have to say that the name of this game feels a little misleading, because there is nothing related to an actual safari, or indeed animals for that matter, in it. What we actually have here is a run and gun style platform game that grew on me the more I played it. The plot is very long and intricate with some huge dollops of humour, so you might enjoy reading it. But all you really need to know is that you've crash landed on a remote island somewhere and need to try and escape. The local natives have been quickly alerted to your presence and aren't in a very welcoming mood, so you must guide Sam from screen to screen, shooting the enemies, jumping across platforms and collecting the items. The latter of these is very important because you can't finish a level without grabbing a key, and you'll constantly need to collect ammo and health if you're going to survive. As well as being able to shoot the bad guys, who will take multiple hits to kill, you can also jump to get across platforms, avoid projectiles and leap over traps. There are also springs you can jump on to reach higher places. Run out of health or fall off the bottom of the screen and it's game over. Safari Sam is well worth a play. When I was reading up on Boing, I saw it described as a Dizzy clone, and I can certainly see why, as it's a platform style arcade adventure with light puzzle elements. But in my opinion the gameplay is actually quite different, as this title is far more focused on the platforming aspects. The plot tells us that Boing has crashed on a strange alien world after his time machine developed a fault. The only way he can escape is by collecting the missing pieces of his craft and 20 potion bottles to fuel it. So it's simply a case of exploring the flick screen world, collecting items, avoiding bad guys and using useful objects where required. A panel at the bottom of the screen shows you what items you've collected along with your energy and your current location. Special items can then be activated using the corresponding number keys. Every time you hit an enemy or fall too far you will lose some of that valuable energy, so you must do your best to avoid any of the resident aliens and jump on platforms to get about. Both the graphics and sound are great here, and the controls are really responsive too. I think I can best describe Boing as the thinking man's platform game. Now here's a title that really surprised me, and it might just be my favourite one on this list. You see, while arcade clones are far from unusual on home computers, SAM Coupé included, I don't think I've ever seen a clone of the Williams coin-op classic Smash TV before. Although its inspirations are pretty obvious, it's not to say that Exodus doesn't have a few original ideas of its own. Firstly, there's the theme, which is totally different, throwing out the Running Man-esque game show premise for a new, more warlike plot that tells us all about the BUT, standing for Bugs Unified Terrorist Team, and your mission to eliminate them. To clear each screen, you don't have to eliminate the terrorists as you may have suspected. You actually have to collect 5 bags of crisps. But these salty snacks only appear once you have killed the requisite number of baddies. You can also collect extra lives, power-ups and weapons upgrades too. And it's worth touching on the weapons aspect just for a moment, because Exodus uses a clever control scheme where you auto-fire in the direction you're facing, with the fire button fixing it in place. Exodus has great graphics, awesome sound and best of all, it even has a simultaneous 2-player mode. Once again, we have another game for the SAM that is certainly inspired by other classics, but has plenty of original elements of its own. The comparisons here are easy to make, because Momentum is very reminiscent of Atari's classic coin-op Marble Madness, but in actual fact it's a lot closer to one of the many clones that game spawned, in Spin Dizzy by Electric Dreams. As in that game, you also control a spinning top that is moving around a series of interlinked screens that are presented with an isometric 3D viewpoint. The object here is to collect eggs that are strewn across a strange alien world, and as well as being able to move your spinning ship, you can also jump and activate a short turbo boost, which is particularly important for getting up those steep ramps. You see, these eggs are up on platforms, down chutes, and sometimes even hidden in secret parts of the screen. Because of the way your ship moves and the way it needs to be slowed down to change your path, Momentum is a really tricky game to control, but not an unfair one. It just takes a while to get used to it. I do recommend activating mouse control however, as this makes it a hell of a lot easier. A beautiful looking and very challenging game indeed. Released as part of a double game pack called Impatience, along with the Othello-like Viking game, Trill Teex is a really original and highly enjoyable take on the classic tile matching game of Mahjong. Like the Chinese puzzler, you are tasked with matching up tiles that feature the same symbol on them, and these tiles are also stacked up, with you only able to match tiles that are free to be moved and not blocked or obscured. Now this might sound easy, but it most certainly isn't, because you need to work out the best tiles to move to free up the others, which can often be trial and error when you can't see what's underneath. Run out of matches and you have no other choice but to start again, but then you also have the completely new addition of special tiles, which you certainly don't find in Mahjong, and these come in many different types. There are bomb tiles which blow up the others around them, mystery tiles that can be flipped over, but only once they are freed up, and tiles that have to be turned around to make them match. This adds so much more to an already excellent formula that gives you so much to think about. Trill Teex is one of the most addictive puzzle games I've discovered for the SAM. Moby DX is quite interesting in that it's an enhanced remake of a much earlier Sam Coupé game called The Lost Discs of Sam, which itself was based on an earlier ZX Spectrum game called The Lost Tapes of Albion. It's a platformer that takes on quite a modern indie game style, throwing everything at you, with survival coming down to the slimmest of margins. The concept of the game is incredibly simple. All you have to do is guide your little character around each screen collecting all the discs. However, these discs are guarded by enemies who can't be killed, and so grabbing them isn't as easy as you initially think. You move from platform to platform in one of two ways, using the teleport pads or running off the sides of the screen. And this is the only way you can avoid an enemy, by simply moving out of their way. But just to make things even more difficult, there are random bombs that appear, and huge snakes that spawn and then fly across each platform. Moby DX is incredibly frustrating. I screamed many times trying to record the footage for this video, but it somehow still manages to retain that magic. I'll just give it one more go, quality that games like this should have.
Small things amuse small minds, like the tiny critters in Sega's most addictive game yet, Lemmings. You can help them escape before they self-destruct, or you can just sit back and watch the little guys explode. Lemmings!
And that rounds up my look at 10 amazing Sam Coupé exclusives. Can you think of any other one-off titles that only ever came out for this unbelievably obscure 8-bit computer? Or do you think some of these games were unworthy of inclusion? We always love to hear the thoughts and views of my audience, so please get typing in that comment section. Before I go though, I must thank all of my loyal patrons for continuing to support my channel and make videos like this possible. However, I must give special thanks to the following patrons and YouTube backers in particular for their much appreciated pledges: Grady Haynes, Mitchell Valentino, Seth A. Robinson, Carl Olsen, Das Gamerman, Sonic Mania 999, Paul Daniel, Andrew McKay, Retro Resolution, Matt Standish, James Taylor, Trogdall the Burninator, Mins, 8-Bit Guy, Luke MC, Ben P. Stein, Tabby Kitsune and Electron Star Collapse. If you also want to help support all my creative endeavours, including this YouTube channel, then please go check out my Patreon right now. You can get access to host extra content, including downloads, exclusive videos, creative insights and much more besides. I've been the Laird, I thank you for watching and I'll see you all again for another video very soon.